Today we're going to be talking about a mysterious archaeological site called Mohenjo-Daro. So the discovery of Mohenjo-Daro actually took place back in 1922 when British archaeologist Sir John Marshall and his team of Indian archaeologists were excavating a site in the Sindh province of Pakistan. Their goal was to uncover evidence of the Bronze Age Indus Valley civilization. But what they found was much more significant than they ever imagined. As they dug deeper into the dry plains of the Indus River Valley, they uncovered an ancient city, one that was unlike anything they had seen before. It had paved streets, multi-story buildings, and a sophisticated drainage system. And contrary to what many archaeologists expected, there were no signs of a ruling class or palaces. Instead, there were granaries, suggesting that food was shared among the community, public bathhouses, and the earliest known sewage systems. The city's layout was remarkable. Its streets were laid out in a grid pattern, a feature that's typically associated with modern urban planning. Houses had private bathrooms with toilets and running water. And the Great Bath, a large public bathing area, was a central feature of the city. In fact, the quality and sophistication of the plumbing system at Mohenjo-Daro was more advanced than some areas in the 19th century. It wasn't just the plumbing that was impressive. The city walls were also a testament to the builders' skill and foresight. They were built with a mud brick that was so strong that it lasted for centuries. And they included features such as a moat and watchtowers. In addition to the city's impressive infrastructure, there were also signs of careful planning. For example, the streets were planted with trees every 20 meters, and there were designated areas for public works and waste disposal. The city was also home to several large public works projects, including the Great Bath and a series of platforms and docks that may have been used for trade or religious rituals. These platforms and docks suggested that the city had a thriving maritime trade network. And indeed, archaeologists have found evidence of trade goods from as far away as Mesopotamia in the homes of Mohenjo-Daro residents. However, despite all of these impressive features, we still don't know much about the people who lived in Mohenjo-Daro. This is because the Indus Valley civilization had no written records that have survived to the present day. So everything we know about them has been gleaned from archaeological evidence alone. Archaeologists have estimated that the city was home to between 30 and 40,000, and it was likely the center of a larger metropolitan area that was home to hundreds of thousands of people. Despite its size, however, the city was abandoned around 1900 BC. And to this day, we still don't know exactly why. One of the most intriguing aspects of Mohenjo-Daro is the way in which its inhabitants seem to have died. When researchers began examining the skeletal remains found at the site, they noticed that many of the bodies were found lying flat on the streets, some face down and others holding hands, as if they had died instantly. This was odd because there were no signs of battle or any other form of violence. In fact, the skeletons showed no signs of trauma at all. What made it even more puzzling was that some of the bones had unusual levels of radiation. This finding led to speculation that the city's inhabitants may have been wiped out by a sudden and catastrophic event, such as a massive earthquake or a flood. However, further analysis of the skeletons and the city itself revealed no evidence to support this theory. For example, there were no signs of flooding, and the type of earthquake that would have killed everyone in the city would have also caused major structural damage, which would have been much more extensive than what was actually found at the site. Moreover, the fact that the skeletons were found lying flat on the streets, rather than huddled together or trying to flee the city, suggested that whatever had happened, it must have been both instantaneous and incredibly terrifying. Further adding to the mystery, some of the stone surfaces at the site appeared to be melted, as if exposed to extreme heat. This finding led to speculation that the city may have been destroyed by a nuclear explosion, which could explain the sudden end of the civilization and the strange radiation levels found in the skeletons. However, there is no evidence of nuclear fallout in the area, nor is there any evidence of widespread destruction, which would have been caused by such an explosion. Despite the lack of evidence for a nuclear event, the idea of a weaponized space explosion persists in some circles. Supporters of this theory point to ancient Indian texts known as the Vedas, which describe weapons of the gods capable of causing massive destruction. However, these texts are not contemporary with the Indus Valley civilization, and there is no archaeological evidence to support the idea that such weapons ever existed. Ultimately, the true fate of Mohenjo-Daro and its inhabitants remains a mystery. There are various theories, but none of them can explain all of the evidence. Some researchers believe that a combination of factors may have contributed to the city's downfall, such as climate change, earthquakes, and floods. Others believe that the city was destroyed by an unknown technological accident. One of the most compelling theories is that the city was hit by a meteor or an airburst explosion, similar to the Tunguska event in 1908 Russia. According to this theory, the impact would have caused massive destruction and wiped out the city's inhabitants almost instantly. This could explain the sudden positioning of the bodies and the apparent thermal damage to the structures. If you think this sounds similar to a nuclear bomb, you aren't wrong. But the evidence doesn't quite fit. If it were a meteor, we should expect to see evidence of impact, such as tektite or shocked quartz. But so far, none of this evidence has been found. Theories aside, the truth is that we may never know exactly what happened to Mohenjo-Daro. The city was largely forgotten for thousands of years, and much of what we know about it has been gleaned from archaeological evidence alone. We still don't know much about the people who lived there. We can't read their script, and we have no idea what they believed. All that's left are the ruins and the bones and the questions. So why do stories like this matter? Well, first of all, it's important to remember that every civilization has its own unique story to tell. And by learning about ancient cultures like the Indus Valley civilization, we gain a deeper understanding of the human experience. But beyond that, stories like this also remind us of the fragility of civilization. When a city as advanced as Mohenjo-Daro can be wiped out in an instant, we are reminded that our own cities and way of life are not immune to sudden disaster. Finally, stories like this challenge us to think about the nature of history itself. If a civilization as advanced as Mohenjo-Daro can disappear without a trace, what else might be hiding beneath the earth? What other cities may have been erased by time, or what knowledge may have been lost to disaster or deliberately kept secret? The truth is we may never know the answers to these questions. But that doesn't mean we should stop asking them. By exploring the mysteries of the past, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and gain a deeper appreciation for the world around us. So next time you come across a story about an ancient civilization, take a moment to appreciate the unique perspective it offers and the lessons it has to teach us. You never know what you might learn. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.